Hey Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you going?
I'm good, man. So I'm always on the hunt for really cool jobs, fun jobs. I came across ice sculpting. I know nothing about the industry. I'm really curious. I saw your website and I saw some of the stuff that you guys do, like for different companies. I think you guys have worked for HBO, which we'll get into a bit later on. But tell me, how you did you get into this industry?
It's a bit of a mad one. I went to university in England, and I went to special effects and animation. That's, as a kid, that's always what I sort of fancied doing. So I did a course that sort of led towards that. And then afterwards, I was looking for jobs, as you do, and I just sent a random email to my sculptors going, "Wow, that looks really interesting. How did you get into that?" And they were looking for someone to help out for a winter period. So I went down for an interview, showed them my portfolio, and then they said, "Well, if you can sculpt, we can teach you how to carve because carving is different than sculpting. With sculpting, you can add and stuff. Where it's carving, you're only really taking away." So they said, "We can teach you this," and I was like, "That'd be good." And then it's been my grown-up job ever since then, which is which is a bit weird that's what's happened.
Because I gotta tell you, Matt, like some people would be like, so ice sculpting could you can actually have a full-time living because people don't make the
Yeah,
connection. But like talk about the different like clients you would have, like because yeah, this is a full-time thing.
yeah. So like I say, so I started off in London. I worked for a company called Hamilton Ice Sculptors, and the Duncan and Jamie. So was the boss, and his son was also the boss. And Duncan started up, I don't know, about 50 odd years ago now. He was sort of like he's like the godfather in England of ice sculpting. So I was lucky I met Duncan, started working with him, and yeah, we were really lucky. We worked on like film shoots. We worked on a Bond movie for some of the first jobs I ever did. So I was proper like bragging to all my mates from university who were in part-time jobs going, "I can't believe I'm on this set. I can't believe I'm doing this shoot." And we also do like 18 parties and wedding stuff, but anytime it was something like super cool where you could name drop, I was all over it with my friends. And this was like in the sort of early 2000s, so it was before like Instagram and everything. It was more you just sent your mate a text going, "This is what I'm doing today," and that was sort of like that was your Instagram sort of thing. So yeah, so it was quite cool. And then my business partner, he was a mate from university. He's also called Matt, and he got into doing special effects, what we kind of wanted to at university. So he worked on some of the Harry Potter films, did some like costumes, and he worked on I think Sky Captain World Tomorrow. He also did a lot of advertising, but he got to do like say some costumes for a few name droppy films. So that was quite exciting. And then me and him sort of did 3 years in London. And we thought, we'll go backpacking, and we lived with loads of South Africans and Aussies when we were in London. All their visas were running out, so they were all going home, and we thought, well, we'll go and see a bit of the world. I'd already done a sort of summer in the States doing a Camp America, and I'd been to Africa. Matt had done a little bit of traveling, so we thought we'll do a round the world trip. So we went to South Africa to see our friends in South Africa, then we went over to Thailand, then we went to Australia, then we went to New Zealand, then we went to Fiji, and then we landed in the States, and we were skint. But we'd had a nice year, and we thought that'd be it. And then there was a guy I went did a semester at my university and stayed in my halls, and I hooked up with him in LA. And it just turned out he didn't have a job at the time, but he had a Jeep and he had a bit of money, and we were like, "Oh, well, let's just all pull our money together." So we spent the last 2.5 months of my round the world trip driving from LA to New York, which was
Wow.
amazing. But in that whole year period, me and Matt, as we were traveling around, everyone's talking about what you can do when you finish this, that, and the other. Joe finished traveling when you go back home. And we said we're going to set up an ice sculpting business because Matt had freelanced my company a bit, and I'd done that. So we spent a year. I had my new iPod at the time, which was the thing with all the pictures of all my ice sculptures on that I'd done. So we spent a year telling everyone, and everyone's dead positive when you travel. And so everyone's like, "Oh man, you should do that. You should do that." So we got back into end of 2005, beginning of 2006, and we're kind of like didn't really fancy moving back from London. I'm from Liverpool originally. Matt's from Lancaster. Grew up in Ireland, and we thought, well, let's give it a go. So
Wow.
we managed to scrape a little bit of money together, and at 20, I think we were 26, we set up this business, and we just thought, what's the worst can happen? We'll just throw a little bit of money if it all goes wrong. And then ever since, we've just been flat out. So we're 19 years in now.
Oh my gosh, man. That's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so wait a second. Okay, what a great round trip story there, man. Holy. So you're telling me you originally wanted to get into special effects. Did you have any artistic, like, did you ever draw? What did
Yeah,
you
yeah.
do
So
before all that?
so like I say, at uni, we did sort of model making and design with a look to work doing special effects. So we did mold making, we did silicon, we worked with silicon, we did like um, prosthetic sort of things on each other. And there was always, we had like a big workshop. There's 10 of us in the workshop, and we all did mold making of different parts of each other's body for part one of the modules. And it was one of them things. Once you encase your friend in sort of in plasticast, all your mates come in and get, the obligatory picture of that person cast in plasticast, can't move, sort of stuck there with everyone pulling faces and drawing things on them and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so we sort of like spent a few years doing that. So yeah, I've done loads of drawing, and I always it was kind of where I didn't know how to get into it, but I kind of thought, well, someone has to do these jobs, and if I keep on sort of plugging, I might not be the best at the time, but if you keep plugging, you get better, blah, blah. And then, and like I say, I was really lucky that I just met Duncan, got into the ice sculpting. And from that, then I started seeing all these different sort of avenues of things. And I mean, as well as doing, from our point of view as a business, I'm known as Big Matt, and the other Matt's Little Matt. So so we've been mates since, I don't know, since we were like 18 or something, so too long now. But and I went and did the honourable thing and married his sister. So he's now my brother-in-law as well. So everyone kind of knows us as Big Matt and Little Matt. So Little Matt, he's like really good at sort of figuring things out. He's an amazing artist, amazing to work with. And he just annoyingly can figure technical things out really well. So sometimes when my head's a bit like, I'll just go to him, what do you think of this, dude? And he'll sort of throw back. Whereas I'm more of the figurative sculpture and really like doing cartoon stuff. So we sort of complement each other when we're working together. And over the years, we've just, as well as doing the ice, we've done some pumpkin carving. So inspired by a guy called Vil Fane in your neck of the woods. Yeah. We started following his videos, and I started doing some for my kids when they were dead little. And then we started doing them in festivals in the UK. Halloween's not as big here as it is over there, but we still do we did like a big 10 scene festival last year where we had all these different scenes where Matty made loads of props, and we had like a scene where we had a guillotine and there was a pumpkin head sort of sticking through and getting his head chopped off, and then we had like a shit little shop of horrors, and we had like one where there was knives being thrown at a wheel of death and all these pumpkins. So we like sort of being creative like that. So when we're not doing the ice, we try and do things like that. We've also we did a music video a couple of years ago for a guy called Nines. He's a British rapper. I'm not really down with rap scene now. I'm a man of a certain age, so I'm more of a bands guy, but my nephews helped me do the shoot, and they're in their early 20s, and they all know who this guy was in England. They were all over it. So we made a 50 meter diameter fire circle that had his new album title called Crop Circles 2. And we made it out of fire rope, and then we lit it, and it was on fire for 15 minutes, and it was filmed overhead by his own drones. And it just comes off the back of years ago. Matty did one for a friend's wedding that was 3 meters big. He made a fire sculpture that was 3 meters big. And someone said to us, could we do it? And we just sat down, like I say, Matt's really good at figuring these things out. And we figured it out. And then we managed to get this job with Warner Brothers that was like, there was a music cover, and we had like 40 people helping us light this thing. And at one point we had this whole thing lit. And we'd seen it in the sky when it was on the floor, but we hadn't seen it lit. And it was all dark, and this guy stood in the middle doing his rapping. And then next minute, one of the drone operators runs over and throws the cameras on my eyes, and I could see it had worked. So I was like, thank God for that. A week of planning, 15 minutes of burning, and you don't know if it's going to work. It's quite, so it's quite cool. But so we get to work on some interesting projects as well as doing the crazy ice stuff as well.
How do you light a fire on ice?
So that wasn't ice. That was a fire sculpture. So we had a field, and we made it. Okay. I do fire with ice. So years ago, I went to Kuwait to do a live demonstration. So I had a chainsaw, big block of ice, and I got told I had an hour and a half. And then when I got to Kuwait, they said I'd have 20 minutes to make an ice sculpture. So I had to quickly run to my room, figure out what I was going to do, and I had to do 3 shows a day. And I was there for 10 days. And like I say, when I landed, the sort of what was agreed wasn't what they wanted, so I had to quickly figure it out. So so I did a show. I did 3 shows a day where I just had chainsaw, and I did like a dolphin, I did a prancing horse, and I did a seahorse possibly. And I did these sculptures each day, and it worked really well. But I kind of afterwards I thought a bit more planning, we could make that better. Right. And we do a big show. We do a big event in England in a place called Durham. It's a really picturesque sort of town with a big cathedral and castles, and it's when you think of like ye old England, Durham's it. Like every sort of corner is you'll have like a normal shop, and then you'll have like a building from I don't know, the 15th century or probably older. You know, it's just nuts. So we do this big event in Durham called Durham Fire and Ice, and we did this. They'd have like all these pillars next to the ice sculptures with fire coming out of it. And we do the ice sculptures and we do a demonstration. And I kind of thought we could do more with the fire. So from the back of me being in Kuwait, when COVID happened and we were bored, I went over to my friend's farm who do the event, and they're pyrotechnics. They do fireworks for a living.
Right.
So we built a show where we had like fire underneath the ice as I was carving and a bank of fire behind me. So now I do a show where I've got 15 minutes, we've got music pumping out, and the whole time fire's going off behind me, fireworks are firing at me, and I'm doing, and you can't really you sort of see the sculpture sort of form over time. So I've got it etched on the back of the block, but from the front of the block, people can't really make out what it is because I've sort of textured the block. And at the end of it, we finished. You can see the sculpture. So I did it. We had the Durham show last week, and I did. The theme was music. So so I did band names. So I did the Eagles, the Gorillas, and the Seahorses. That's a British band. So they were the sculptures I did for the fire sculptures. But as well as that, we also had interactive sculptures where we had like a full-size sort of piano made with a real piano setting, a real keyboard set into it, so people could play music. Matt had made this big drum kit that people could pose and get the drum kits. What else did we had? It was only last week. We had loads of stuff again. I did this big fire show, and it just goes down awesome. And then we did it at Christmas, just gone, and we did it for the first time at night. And at night, it was even better because when we do it at Durham, it's in the daytime, and the last show is normally about 5:30. So it's coming dusk then, and the fire looks better when it starts going dark. But when we did it at Christmas, we did it in a place called Coventry, and I did the 3 shows, and it was just really cold, and it was really dark, and it was awesome. So every time any of the guy who organised for me AH events, Scott, who does all my pyrotechnics, he had like smoke, sort of like different jets of smoke coming out of me and all this sort of stuff. And there's some points he didn't tell me he changed the set of what he did, and I couldn't see nothing. So he just pumped all this smoke in front of me. I've got my chainsaw running, and I'm just stood there just thinking, I'm not going to move. No one can see me, but it looks cool. And I had to wait for the sort of smoke to dissipate before I can carry on. And like I say, I've got a 15-minute sort of window to get this sort of sculpture finished. So, I digress.
Okay.
I sort of jump about quite a lot, so I apologize. I don't.
It's okay, Matt. I got to interrupt, man. Like, you're telling me you had this like a freaking fireworks fire show happening behind you as you're carving live with the chainsaw?
That's it. So I'll send you a link. There's we've got some links on our Instagram and stuff. So we've got the Christmas one I mentioned. But yeah, the climax of the show is underneath the sculpture. The fire lights up from underneath the sculpture as well. So the whole time I'm doing the show, Scott does like a fire show behind me and fireworks. And then, right at the end, when the music sort of reaches its sort of final point, I step back, throw my hand in the air, and there's fire blazing behind me, and there's fire blazing underneath me. And boy, does it get hot. I'm stood in the middle of this. There's always a spot marked on the floor I'm going to stand, which is the safety spot. But it gets very, very hot in that safety spot. And I'm stood there with my hand in the air holding the chainsaw. People are applauding. But I'm knackered because my arms are just being like 15 minutes speed carving. Yes, it's cool.
All right. Okay. So, listeners, viewers, some of you out there, you're just finding out about this industry. And I don't think this is something that you just dive into right away what he's describing. It sounds phenomenal, amazing. I'm assuming, Matt, this takes a lot of planning to do like a fire show while you're using a chainsaw carving a sculpture.
Yes. So like I say, that one, I've done live carving before. We normally do what we call chippy chatty, so where we'll just sort of sculpt a 1-block sculpture. So in the industry, you get a standard sort of block of ice is roughly a meter by half a meter by 25 centimeters. Sorry, I work in centimeters.
It's okay. I'm Canadian. I get you.
And it's sort of standard. So there's an American company called Climb-Bell, and they sort of created these machines. And now either people have Climb-Bell machines or they have replicas of them. Different companies around the world will replicate this machine. But it's a standard block. That's what most people use. You can get bigger blocks. And then when you go to some international competitions, we've been over to Alaska and done it in Alaska, and they cut the blocks out of the lakes and then store them to get these giant 2-meter blocks that weigh about, I think they weigh about a ton each, these blocks. Our blocks weigh about 130 kilograms. And so I think 8 of ours is around about a tonish, whereas the blocks we use in Alaska one's over a ton. So you need to move that plant and machinery. But yeah, so at these standard blocks, everyone's sort of, if someone's got an ice sculpting workshop in States, UK or wherever, they tend to have these machines that use these blocks. And then we can sort of stack these blocks together and make giant sculptures or small sculptures. Wow. So when I'm making a single block sculpture, we do like this thing, let's say chippy chatty, where we'll create a sculpture in front of the public, but we're more there to sort of, people ask us questions. Oh, how'd you do that? Blah, 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 blah. And you're sort of, it's nice, you've got time. Whereas the fire show is more about, speed, power, and music going, and all energy, and that's it. Keep people guessing, and the whole time I'm doing it, it can actually go really wrong. Like I could just it can just collapse because the ice is ice has to sort of temper for you to be able to use it. So we set these things up, and I want it to be cold enough so it sticks together. Because you can stick ice together when it's a certain temperature. When it gets too warm, it doesn't stick together anymore. But you kind of need to be a certain temperature of warm so you can attack it with the chainsaw so fast. So yeah, I think there's always that trepidation of when I'm doing the fire show really quick that it can just crack and fall off. And I'll be like, so I've kind of got a backup plan with my the guy who does my pyro. And I was like, if it just collapses, man, kick off all the fire and I'll just stand there. I was like, that's how we finish it. If it goes wrong, and touch wood, I've been doing that for the fire show now for the last 4 years. And I've only had once where I did Bugs Bunny last year and one of his ears fell off. A crack went through his ear early on. I saw it and I thought, have I got away with this? And right near the end, it fell off. But it fell off as in I managed to carve it so it looked like it was just flopping forward. And everyone thought I did it on purpose, but I totally didn't. I was like, oh, man.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay, so you talked a little bit about, so the really high end, like crazy fire shows, and you talked about like the single block, jobs as well. So like, what kind of skills, what kind of base skills, like if I'm new to this industry, what do I need, Matt, to succeed? Like, obviously artistic skills. What do I need?
Yeah, so I mean, being able to draw. I think for any sort of artist, any sort of artistic, just be able to draw. You don't have to be the best drawer, be able to get your idea across. So I say this when I go into schools all the time to kids, like, because obviously everyone does stuff digitally now, but being able to just pick up a pencil and be able to create some markings on a bit of paper, even if it's not like the best drawer in the world, but then you can show that to someone else you're working with or a potential client, and you can sort of describe what you've done there and saying, this is what I'm thinking of doing. If you can just relay on paper what you want to do to a bigger team or to somebody else, that's really important. Like I say, your drawing doesn't have to be, an amazing detailed drawing, but as long as you can sort of, that's always a good starting point. And then, being able to just handle chisels. It's weird when we do our little festivals in England, we do the ice shows, we do the interactive ones like that. We'll do like a thing called carving wall, and we'll set up 4 blocks of ice and we'll put some text on it, normally saying, I know whatever festival it is, so the Durham Ice Festival, whatever, and then we let kids have a go. So we'll etch onto it. We give kids safety gloves, and then we give them like a long handle chisel, and supervised by one of the members of my team, we let the kids have a go. So even though they've seen all these different things we're doing, they can see us doing the amazing sculptures, they're actually physically getting a go. And it's really weird because adults do it as well. We let adults have a go as well, but it's really weird. Some people will hold a chisel, and it's like, they've never held something before. Others will hold it, and all of a sudden it's just like an extension of the hands. Some people just naturally do it really well. And same with kids, it's just one of them things. So if you feel, if you like doing art or design and you like making things, you might find when someone hands you a chisel and you go to chip on a block of ice, all of a sudden like, wow, this is really easy. And people also think with ice, they think we went to a competition once with someone who now is my friend's wife, but when we met together, that was the first time they met, and she was an artist. But we were going to a competition in Latvia, me and a friend called Darren, and Steffi was a student at the Royal Academy in London, and she'd been offered a place at the competition as well. So she met us in Heathrow Airport, and we were flying out together. And she turned up with a mallet and a load of chisels, and we were like, "Oh, you don't need a mallet because you literally just need sharp chisels. You can just push the chisels on the ice, and it just glides. Whereas if you're doing wood or anything else, you really need to, or stone, you really need to be hitting away. Whereas the ice, you just sort of, it just glides. There's different ice, it acts so many different ways in different temperatures. So when it's like, when it's warm, if it's a hot day, say it's like, I don't know, 15 degrees, something, and you're carving, it acts a certain way. If you're in the freezer, when we're in the freezer, we normally like to be about -8, -10 degrees. It acts another way. When we're in Alaska and it was -35 at night, it acts it's like rock. It acts in a totally different way. But there's just this noise it makes when it's cold. It's just when you're carving, and it's just so nice. And when anyone comes to the studio or they're having to go for the first time, and you've got a nice cold block of ice, and especially when you hand them we've got big Japanese chisels that are awesome, the big long handle things with like heads like this size, and you just go, it's just so therapeutic and so nice. So my favourite place in the world is being in one of my freezers, having a sculpture all roughed out, which I'll rough out in room temperature, popping it in the freezer, having all my sort of references on the wall, putting some tunes on an audio book, shutting my freezer door in my little safe space, and having all my chisels there, and then just working on something. And I say, sometimes I don't have the music on at all, and you say that, and then you just sort of working, and it's mad. I like to sort of occasionally do like a little time lapse of it, because even obviously I'm concentrating on what I'm working on, but when I watch back, it just being created, even though I created it, it's really interesting to sort of see just something sort of appear out of the ice, Joe, like in a time lapse. It's quite cool.
It's just you're in that flow state, you're just zen. I get it. So okay, so tell me this, Matt. When you get a gig, you get a client, they got a deadline. They're like, we need this by, you're describing earlier, you had like 20 minutes to put something together, like in one of your stories you mentioned. So what happens to the creativity? Like, if you got to do something fast, does that compromise creativity?
But I live on deadlines. Every single day has deadlines. Like, right. There's all that's being a commercial creative artist. You've always got deadlines, and it's good because it's good to have a time limit, because sometimes if you've got infinite amount of time, you can just kind of get lost where you've got to get something finished for something. So it really does push you. And me and Matt work, it's great. Like, sort of, sometimes when we're doing the Durham Ice Festival, for instance, we'll create 15 sculptures at that event. So the one we just did was a music theme. So we chatted to the clients what they wanted, and then we bounced ideas back into, and then we come up with concepts. We'll do this. We did like a Sony Walkman, and we did like a French horn. There was the piano. There was the drums. What else did we have? I did the Kiss, the lips from Rolling Stones. So we had all these different sculptures. We had all these things sort of agreed that, right, we'll do this. And this particular client, they're not really too fussed about designs, because they know once they give us the titles and we're all happy, they're happy for us to go away. And I say, we've worked with them for like 15 years now. Whereas a new client will want design, so we'll sketch loads of stuff down. But it all comes back to saying, once, even though they'd said like they wanted the French horn, we had to sit down, draw up a French horn, and try and figure out how to make it really detailed but to last. So we worked out we could carve negatively inside the ice, then stick the ice back together and have the horn 3D on the outside. But then even when you looked inside, you'd see all the sort of shapes that make this. So we sort of sit down and plan, and we'll do lots of sketches. And then I've got a plotter printer, which is basically a massive printer, and I can just print out rolls of paper. So we print everything out so it fits into a block. So if we're doing something of multiple blocks, we print it really big, stick it to the blocks of ice, and then we just start working on it. Like I say, I'll have like a bank of wall of references and stuff. So when a client comes to us new and they want something, they might say they want their corporate logo involved in something like this, but they want it for, I don't know, they want a James Bond themed party, for instance. We'll come back and do loads of different Bond-themed ideas, have their little corporate brand in the corner somewhere, and then have 007 everywhere. And we'll come back with lots of different ideas, and they might come back and say, that's great. So I'll send them sketches, just sort of drawings I'll do on the computer. And then they'll go, that's great, but I like elements this, like elements that. Any chance you can put this together? And you go, yeah, and then we swap it around. And then once that's signed off, then we take it to the freezer and start figuring out how to make it 3D. And the thing about ice sculpting is, it always melts. So whenever you're doing it for parties and stuff, it's always going to melt. So you can make the most intricate thing possible, but you've got to bear in mind that at some point it's going to melt, and at some point the structure needs to still be standing. So the last thing you want is for the whole thing to collapse in the middle of a party. So you want to make something really delicate, but you don't want to make something that's like really thin on the bottom and really fat on the top. Right. You can make it to a point, but you've got to sort of like mess about. When we go to international competitions, that's what you're trying to do. So when we're in Alaska, the whole idea is you're trying to make something really little, hold something really big. That's what you're pushing the limits of the thing. And if it collapses, that's just part of life. But that's a competition, so that's okay. But your client doesn't want it to collapse. Your client wants it to be all shine, all singing, and their brand to be, in the forefront, and everyone tell them how great they are and how the ice sculpture really makes the event feel, do whatever they want from their event. So yeah, so it's quite good.
So Matt, there's no way to like maintain the integrity of the sculpture because you're talking about how it can melt. Like how you have a heater that puts heat on stuff. Is there like like something with I don't know, like some sort of freezing kind of component that could blow air on it to keep the ice sculpt? No.
No, so when we make sculptures and we put them in the freezer, so I'll make a sculpture like sometimes months in advance, and we wrap it up in bubble wrap and stuff, and then we stick in the freezer. Now, very occasionally, an event might get cancelled, or for some reason that sculpture doesn't get used, and we'll either go, we'll probably sell it later on. It's I don't know, it's something, it's a illusion. It'll probably come up at Christmas and we'll be able to sell it, and it can leave it there for 6 months, and even though it's been wrapped, when we unwrap it, we'd have to recarve it again because in the freezer, there's a flow of air that runs round. And even though it's cold in there, that circulation erodes the ice. So if you imagine like the way erosion works on rocks, wind and rain, everything does that. That happens with ice, but it's like speeds up so much. So if you leave a sculpture unwrapped in the freezer, when we've done ice rooms where it's been a completely refrigerated room, it's been there for like 6, 8 a year, sort of in there. And when we go back, we'll have all tool marks when we've carved the sculpture. When we go back like a couple of weeks later, it's all polished because of the erosion on it. We go back like 12 months later and half the sculpture's sort of just gone. It just sort of evaporated because of all the erosion. So there's no way of having anything to blast on to keep it cold. So yeah, for as far as I'm aware as well, from chatting to my colleagues in the States and anywhere else, people tend to make sculptures to last a day. When you get sub-zero temperatures, you might get a week out of it or something. In the UK, we tend to not get the temperatures you get a lot in some of the States over there. So our ice festivals tend to be a day, occasionally 2 days, or we'll make fresh ones for the second day. But most sculptures in artists' minds are made for that day and then at the end of it. And the weirdest thing is, I'm setting an ice sculpture up. I've made all these different pieces. They're all carefully wrapped. We get in. The client say, "You've been very delicate. Moving this little bit. We'll stick that bit together. Moving this little bit, stick that bit together." It's there for 6 hours. The party's amazing. You come back at the end. You turn up an ice pick, and you're like, "I don't care. Bang, bang, bang. Smash it. Get out, go." I have no emotional attachment to any ice sculpture. When it's going up to get it finished, I'm all about making sure it's perfect. But once I walk out that room and the client says, "Yeah, we're happy," I no longer care about that piece of ice. And when I go back, take it down, the best bit is you just get to destroy it and smash it up. It's so weird.
Oh man, it's a release. I get it. So, okay. So tell me, Matt, when a client comes to you and I need the ice sculpture this date. Do you do the sculpture the day of or a day before? How does that work?
No, most of the time, like 90% of the stuff we'll do. So I've just done one today for a birthday party on Saturday. So it's someone's 18th birthday party. It's 18, says happy birthday. I can't remember the name underneath. And then it's got like a slope behind so you can pour vodka through it. And that's made in 5 pieces, and I've made 11 pieces, and it's all wrapped, and it's in my freezer now. And on Saturday, I'll drive to the party, stick it all together, and there you go. So that's all made. So most of the time, that's how it works. We're doing it. We've got entry races and the entry races in 2 weeks or 3 weeks time, and we do a sculpture per day for a posh chef there who we work with a lot. Posh chef. He does really posh food. He's a lovely guy. And it's for like really high-end clients, and we'll do the same sculpture every day. And I'm going to make them next week. So I'll make 3 sculptures exactly the same, and every day we could put a fresh sculpture in, and then the chef dress up with all the beautiful food and stuff. But yeah, we'll make them loads in advance. Sometimes when we're really busy, I'll make them the night before. I mean, around winter for us starts in October and finishes last week, and we are just chocker flat out. It's just nuts.
Really?
Yeah.
So let's talk. Okay, so some of the things that I'm getting from you, Matt, in terms of like being a successful ice sculptor. Okay, you got to have some drawing ability. You have to be quick on your feet, be adaptable. You got to pump stuff out really quickly. You got to be detail oriented, but once the job's done, you let it go, have your fun, chop it up. So what other things? Okay, do you need school? Do you need to go to school for this? Like what?
It depends. So like I say, I went to in England, I went to school, I went to college, and then I went to university, and I was always doing design and art subjects. That's always what I did. It was always what I was interested in. I'd seen ice sculpting once on a TV show.
Yeah.
All my friends joke and say I'm trying to be Bill Murray from Groundhog Day, because that's what everyone associates with ice sculpting. Bill Murray
That's
doing
right.
that. So yeah, so that was sort of my knowledge of ice sculpting. Once in TV show, once seen Bill Murray doing. Never was on my radar of something I'd do, and like I say, I just accidentally fell into it.
Yeah.
But there's a few guys who work with me. So my business partner, he had a similar background to me, going through art school, and then we got taught by the same fellow in London. But then I've got quite a few friends now that basically, when me and Matt were going around the world, we basically contacted a couple of friends and went, our jobs are going in London. Do you want them? Them two lads. One of them is Darren, who went to the ice comp with. Another guy's called Ben. He still works for the old company. But then there's guys who work for me who didn't do art at all, but were good drawers. They come in, they helped us do deliveries, and then started chatting about what they did. They had no sort of traditional art school training or anything.
Okay.
And they're amazing. Like, there's a guy called Paul Crawford who works for us. He's an amazing artist. He's got his own company now, but he's still, freelancers for us doing the art. There's another guy called Attila, Hungarian lad. Again, had no art background, and then started working for us, and then got really good. And then he's set up his own pottery company now. So you quite often find that once people get the bug of it, even if they've not done it through traditional schooling, once they get the bug of it, as well as doing the ice, it sort of opens up other doors. Like, all of a sudden they realise the creative art world, there's so many different things out there, and it makes them want to have a go. So like I say, as well as doing the ice, we've done pumpkin carving, we've done sand carving, we've done the fire stuff, a bit of wood carving. It's just great trying all these different sort of things out. And again, you're always meeting, especially with social media and stuff now, you're always meeting new artists and seeing new things and saying, hey, how'd you get into that, or how'd you do that, and sort of vibing off each other and throwing ideas back at each other. So it's great. But yeah, I think it's just if you've got an art background, that's great, but if you've not, it doesn't mean you can't do it. Like I say, so we call it our where I work, I call it our studio, and that's a place I worked in London, they call it the studio. In America, we've been to America to do a competition in Alaska, and I've met a few guys over there that do it, and everyone calls it their shop, so they call it their ice shop. So it's just terminology. But yeah, so you get a lot of guys over in the States that seem to have come from chefing backgrounds. Because my old boss used to be what's culinary art, and you get quite a few people who learn it as a chef and then set up as a business, and then they'll get the young guys come in from different backgrounds. Again, some of the guys I'd met when we were in Alaska had artistic backgrounds. Some had learned just on the job. Joe, they knew the guy who did it. They went in to help and do deliveries, and then they got good. And like I said, it's just it's weird. Just some people just take to it, and then other people. And you've got to not mind being cold. So when I'm in the freezer doing detail and stuff, I've got all my layers on. It's all fine, but there's a point when all of a sudden you're like, oh no, my hands are freezing, my toes are gone. I need a brew. So I'll go out, take a load of layers off, put a load of new warm layers back on, have a cup of tea, and go back in. And I don't mind that, but that's not normal. So you've got to sort of like that aspect of it, especially when you go to buddy. Can I have a treat? Yeah, go on. Sorry, I'm not lad.
It's all good. It's all good.
So when you go, you've got to just get used to being cold and stuff, because it isn't normal. So when you go to competitions, it gets really, really cold. But again, there's that sort of drive to want to be doing it, to like it.
Yeah. So guys, remember, you got to like the cold, right? If you want to do this gig. So Matt, talk about, you talked about networking, which is a great way to get a gig in the industry. Are there other company websites do you think that people should check out, like other ice sculptors, see if they're looking for work? Like, where do people find the work? You know what I mean?
So in England, again, like I say, I just fell into the company dude, but across in America, there's loads more ice carvers than there are in the UK. Obviously, you're a bigger country, so I've met a few at the competitions. There's a guy who got Sub-Zero Ice in Michigan, I think it is, called Max. He's come over to the UK to see some of our stuff, and we took him out on a bit of a Beatles sort of. I live in Liverpool, so we took him on a Beatles night out, me and my mates, and we had a good vibe with him. We took him to one of our ice bars we made, and that was pretty cool. He sort of seems to work all over the place. There's what's Aaron's company? There's a guy called Steve Bryce, lives in Alaska, and him and his wife Heather, they're amazing artists, and they seem to go all over the place. There's Ice Sculptor Greenville. They've got a few guys who work for him. But yeah, from chatting to people, there's everyone has the same busy period. Like it's always nuts from about October through to about February for you guys as well, because you get that sort of winter period where
Yeah.
all of a sudden every man and his dog wants an ice sculpture for a festival or for a party. So
Yeah.
every ice carver is like, not only have you got to carve it, but you've got to deliver to all these multiple places. So everyone's looking for people to help out. So that's a good time to sort of get in. So Paul, who's let's say who's freelances for us still now and works for us, he was a neighbour of ours who was in between jobs, and we needed someone to do a delivery. And he's massive. He's a big lad, Paul. He's like 6'4" and like huge, but really nice lad. And he said, "Could I do some deliveries for you?" And he got on doing deliveries, and then got basically in through the back door carving. And we taught him, then realised he had the talent for it. So yeah, so that's I even when we were first getting the creative industry, that's how the other Matt got his special effects job. He just got a job doing deliveries for that company first of all, and then started getting in and showing his willing, but also showing he was good. So that can also be a point. I mean, you're not gonna walk into someone's shop or studio and go to the head sculptor. "Oh, I fancy sculpting. You've got this really amazing sculpture today." You don't do that. You sit down. "I'm going to do it today." That's not going to happen. You might get there eventually, but they're going to go, "Get lost, mate. I do this because I'm going to do it."
For sure. I love it. These are great tips, Matt. Great tips. Okay, a couple more questions. This one, okay, you guys worked with HBO, right?
Hmm. We were very lucky. So we've done a few TV things over the years, but yeah, we did Game of Thrones.
Game of
So
Thrones. Okay, talk about Game of Thrones, man. There's a lot of
so we
fans
were
out there. Talk
so
about it.
it was around season 3. So I've been to this is my experience on learning. Oh, I love Game of Thrones, but I'd never. Me and Matt went to Latvia to an ice competition, and you bunk up, and we did this competition, and we're carving, and we're in our room at night, and we're having a couple of beers, and Matt goes, "Oh, have you seen Game of Thrones?" I was like, "What's that?" And he goes, "Oh, I'll go at my laptop." He goes, I'll watch it. And this was back in DVD days before you download some other DVD of season 1. So basically, because we were there for a week, we watched season 1 on it. We lived together as well, me and Matt at the time, but we watched it, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." So got into it, watched season 2. We were in a busy winter time. We had a job on going to the Cannes Film Festival to do a lot of ice sculptures over there from France. So me and Paul were sort of going to be driving over to France. It was for Smirnoff Ice, but it was for the Cannes Film Festival. So we had this big job planned. And then we had loads of stuff going on. And then we got this email come through. And it was a production company. And they said, "We've got a TV show coming up." And they sent us this drawing. And it was an ice queen. And there was some things. And Matt goes, "Oh, I might try and get this." And then next minute, Matt comes around the office. I was like, "What's up?" He goes, "Stop, stop, stop, stop." I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Come in here." And he goes, "That production company just sent me another drawing." And the next drawing had GOT in the top corner, which is Game of Thrones. And we recognised him. We were like, "No." And Matt's like, "I'm not doing anything now." He goes, "I'm winning this gig, man." He goes, "I'm getting it." And he goes, "I don't care what they want." He goes, "I'm getting this job. I'm getting this job." So Matt spent the next 2 days doing design after design and being really chatty and really keen. And, "Oh, yeah, we'd love to do it. Da, da." Anything. And he said, and so it turns out, he said, "Yeah, we're doing a shoot. You can't really tell anyone about it in Belfast. Can you come over to Belfast and create these giant boulders and rocks and an ice altar? And it's going to be a 2-day shoot. How will you preserve it?" So we come up with creative ideas how to keep the ice so it lasts for the 2 days. And then, yeah, so I went to Cannes, to the film festival, and then managed to split my leg open in a swimming pool. As I got out of a swimming pool, set a load of ice sculptures floating in the swimming pool. And because I was in the swimming pool for 40 minutes at an ice sculpture shop, all your skin goes soft. As I got out, someone had put a light on the floor that was really sharp. I slipped my ankle, had to have 11 stitches.
Oh,
Paul had to drive me back. Got back to England. We were going Game of Thrones next day. And Matt goes, "Oh, dude, maybe you don't come." And I was like, "You can off." I was like, "There is absolutely no way I'm not going on a set of Game of Thrones." So all bandaged up, we drove over to Belfast with 4 vans full of ice. And then we set up this set. And it was awesome. We set this big it was in the middle of a forest. They had big green screen above and behind. And then we set up all our giant ice boulders, and we set this ice altar. And then, so the scene it was the White Walker, King White Walker, whatever, walks over. There's a baby in the altar. He touches the baby, and the baby's eye turns blue, and he turns into a White Walker. So they shot that. So there was bits where all these White Walkers were walking towards us, and they had real babies there, man. They had 4 real babies that they rotated. It was mental. I had very young kids at the time, and I was saying to my mates, I was like, "There is nothing on earth that my wife would let me." We put perspex on the ice altar, but there's no way my wife would let my baby go in there for any amount of money for 30 seconds. Because that's what it was. They come on 30 seconds, they'd do a shot, and then they'd take the baby off. And they also had a dummy baby, but it was really weird. But the White Walker, the main White Walker guy, I don't know his full name, but he's called Dan. Lovely fella, really nice, but he's dressed up as the main White Walker, all scary. And he's walking over, looking all menacing and stuff. And there's this little baby and this all crying, and everyone's been quiet and it's all being filmed. And Dan's going, "Don't cry, little baby. Don't be scared of me and my scary face." And everyone's like trying not to laugh. And this is going on. And then it goes over and touches the baby. And then, the baby's okay. The parents, like, everything's like proper looking after the baby. It's really, heavily sort of looked after. But it was just a bizarre sort of place to be. And then Dan all of a sudden goes, "Oh, one of my nails are broken. Can someone fix my nail? Makeup, can you get my nail? That baby's okay, innit?" "Yeah, the baby's okay." And he's like, "Hey, little dude." And it's just like, that was just the weirdest sort of thing. We were there for 2 days doing that. And then, they also did some shooting through blocks of ice. So I think it was a main episode 3, season 3, the last sort of two and a half minutes. I know, because we watched it many a time. We had a big screen in our flat for all the lads who are involved. But that was the main bit we were on. But throughout that season, there was a few bits where they were shooting through ice and the White Walkers behind the ice, and it was all sort of our bits. We were made up with that. But then we also worked on Knives Out 2 just towards the end of COVID. Cool. I got flown out to Serbia and made, I don't know if you've seen Knives Out 2, but there's like a giant sort of set piece where there's they smash all these crystal glass things, sculptures in the room at the end, and there's a giant knight that's got like a crossbow in it, and I think Jamila Jamil, I can't remember her name now, but one of the actresses, she's a singer. She pushes the sculpture over, so her stunt double had to push this full-size knight over, and it smashed. And they had a prop, and they weren't happy with the way the prop was smashing. So the art director decided it might work better if he made it in ice. So I flew over there, was in their freezer lorry for a week, making this and back. This was right at the end of COVID, so 2021. So you've got Ed Norton and Kate Hudson and stuff all on set, and we're all stood there. When we're not on set with masks on, you stood next to me like, "This is really weird." There's Ed Norton just stood next to me with a coat, and you're like, "All right, mate." And then in your head you're thinking, say something cool, and you're like, "I just said, all right, mate, that'll do. Don't embarrass yourself. That's you." So I'm going in the freezer every day working and trying to get people to come and see it. And everyone's like, "Oh, Matt, I'm sure you're doing a good job. I'm sure you're going to do a good job." So I spent a week in the freezer making this thing. And then on the shoot day, all of a sudden, every man and his dog is focusing on me. And we had to lift this sculpture in, and they pull half the set apart, and then they put the sculpture in, and then I start to finish it off because I had to leave supports in so we could forklift it into site. So while everyone's around me and all the crew and the director and everyone's talking to you and people looking over your shoulder, you're there with the chainsaw and you're sweating and you're thinking, if I cut this off now, is this going to break? Or you're trying to make it so it will break, but when it breaks when they want it to. So that was quite nerve-wracking, but it was awesome. But then they messed up my flight time, so we stood there for 2 hours while they were planning all this, and then I had to go because I was going to miss my flight. So they sent me to the airport, and then one of the girls who was from the art department filmed the bit that of it smashing. So I'm in the airport waiting for my flight, not knowing if my week's work was any good, and I just get this little video going. It was awesome, and just see the sculpture getting smashed over, and I got my name and credits on that one, so I was dead chuffed.
Oh man, I love it, man. Oh, Matt, that's awesome. I love your stories, man. I love it. Dude, okay, ladies and gentlemen, obviously this is a very cool job, what Matt's describing here. He's having a great career so far. Matt, any final like tips for people out there who want to get into your industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think just sort of be creative, be sort of like I say, just keep on trying drawing, making things. It doesn't just have to be sculpting. If you can show you can make things 3D. Before I started carving, I sculpted, so I made things with wax and clay, and just getting that knowledge of how things work in 3D is really sort of useful. And then put yourself out there. I'd like to say there's tons of ice sculpting companies. I've got it's surprising how often I get asked to do ice sculptors in the States because they think we're based in the States. So now, because of that, I've got an email with, I think, about 10 ice carvers across the States that I'll just send back going, haha, sorry, we're in Liverpool, but try one of these guys. So I'll send over, recommend. So I can send it over to you. So I've got like a list of carvers that across the States that do amazing work. Just contact people, ask locally how people got into it, if they need a hand. You'd be surprised. Like when I see it all the time, because I follow loads of the guys over there, when they're doing like a big ice festival, and they're putting like 50 sculptures out, they can't get enough staff to do that. Do you know what I mean? So they might need someone for a day or 2 days. So go in if you can be helpful, help the guy just move the stuff around, and then you've got your foot in the door. And from that, you might be able to do a bit more. I know quite a few of the different states when they're having their state fairs, winter state fairs, they'll have ice competitions for professionals, but they also do it for juniors as well, where kids can have a go. I'm not fully sure how that works, but I'd see them all the time. So it's just sort of getting yourself out there. Obviously, these are in the colder states, not so much in, even though there are ice carvers from Texas, you don't really get the ice festivals in Texas. It's more, in the colder states across the country. Sure. But yeah, so I'll send you the link over. But yeah, have a look and see who's doing it, and just sort of go and see an ice festival if you can, go and see some sculptures, and then chat to the artist and see, you never know. I sent one email, and that's been my career since, so it sort of happens occasionally.
Great tips, Matt. Great tips. Where can people find out more about you, man?
We've got our website, glacialart.com, and our Instagram is glacial_1. There's loads of videos on there. The website's got loads of the projects I talked about, the Alaska stuff, the Game of Thrones stuff, the Knives Out 2 stuff. And if you're bored, drop us an email sometimes when I'm not too busy. I don't mind emailing back saying hi.
For sure. Matt, thanks so much, man. This has been great. Awesome.
Oh, well, lovely to meet you. Thanks very much for having us.
Now, that was a fun conversation. Matt, thanks for opening my eyes. I have to admit, before this chat, I had no clue about ice sculptors, about the ice sculpting industry, what it takes to get to the level that you're at, Matt. It was really eye-opening, so I appreciate it. Thank you for just, getting us behind the curtain and just letting us know what it's like. So again, thanks so much. All right, that's it for this interview. If you want to see more content like this, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. Until next time, take care and have a good one.